Ever work with someone who just has this incredible way of inspiring everyone around them? They're not just managing, they're leading with this energy that's almost contagious.
It's really remarkable.
That's the magic of transformational leadership. And the cool thing is, it's something we can all learn from. Today, we're doing a deep dive into this fascinating leadership style, and we've got some awesome insights from Very Well Mind.
They're a great resource.
Definitely, you can always count on them for solid, approachable psychology info.
And what makes this leadership style particularly interesting is that it's not just the followers who benefit. Transformational leaders don't just lead, they actually create this environment where everyone's lifting each other up. It's all about fostering a shared sense of purpose.
Yeah, it's not just about telling people what to do. It's about building a culture where everyone feels valued, empowered, like they can actually contribute. Kind of like how a rising tide lifts all boats, right?
Precisely. It's a dynamic relationship between the leader and the team. And to really understand the style, it helps to know where it came from. So the term transformational leadership, it was actually coined by a scholar named James McGregor Burns.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize there was a specific person credited with that.
Yeah, Burns spent his career trying to understand leadership, and he saw this style as a process where, leaders and followers inspire each other toward a common goal, one that's rooted in both a strong vision and, importantly, moral values.
So it's not just some new buzzword. It's actually based on decades of research.
Exactly. And then later on, another researcher, Bernard M. Bass, he built upon Burns' work and developed what's known as Bass's transformational leadership theory. He really dug into the how does it work? What makes it so effective? And he identified these four key components. And here's what's really cool. These components aren't just theoretical, they actually have a real tangible impact on how teams perform and how individuals feel within those teams.
Okay, so let's break down these four components. The first one is intellectual stimulation. Honestly, that sounds a little intimidating at first glance.
I can see why you'd say that, but it's not about being a genius or anything like that. It's really more about fostering a culture of curiosity and challenging the status quo. Think about a leader who, instead of just barking orders, asks their team, what if we tried this approach? Or how could we look at this problem differently?
Right, so they're encouraging their team to really think critically, to come up with innovative solutions instead of just sticking to the same old routines.
Exactly. It's all about empowering individuals to contribute their unique perspectives. Now, the next component, individualized consideration, this one really gets to the heart of what makes this style so effective.
This one sounds like it's all about making people feel valued.
It is about that, but it goes deeper than just, surface level appreciation. A transformational leader really sees the individuals on their team. They get their strengths, their weaknesses, what they want to achieve. It's about tailoring your approach for each person, giving them support and mentorship that actually makes sense for them.
So it's less about having a one-size-fits-all approach to leadership and more about recognizing that everyone needs something a little different to really thrive.
Exactly. Think about a time when you felt truly supported in your work, like someone really had your back. Maybe it was a mentor who saw your potential and gave you opportunities to grow. Or maybe it was a leader who recognized your unique skills and found ways to use them effectively. That feeling of being seen and valued, that's what individualized consideration is all about.
It can make all the difference. Okay, let's move on to component number 3, inspirational motivation. This one sounds pretty self-explanatory, to be honest.
Yeah, it might sound simple on the surface, but this is where truly great transformational leaders really shine. It's not just about setting goals, it's about painting a picture of a future that people actually want to be a part of. Think about Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. He didn't just lay out a plan for civil rights, he created this vivid picture of a better, more equitable future, and it resonated with millions of people.
It's about tapping into that deeper sense of purpose, right? Like, it's the difference between saying, okay, team, let's increase sales by 10% this quarter, and saying, we're going to revolutionize the way people experience music and connect with each other through it.
Exactly. It's about tapping into that intrinsic motivation, that drive that comes from within when we feel connected to something bigger than ourselves. All right, the final component, idealized influence. This one's really interesting.
So is this about being the perfect leader, like the one everyone idolizes?
Not necessarily about being perfect, no, but it is about embodying the values and aspirations you want to see in other people. Think about leaders who have this really strong moral compass, the ones who consistently walk the talk. They earn respect and admiration not because of their title or their position, but because of their actions and their character.
So it's not about putting on a show. It's about being authentically you, just like the best possible version of yourself.
Exactly. Think about someone like Nelson Mandela. He spent decades fighting against apartheid, enduring imprisonment and hardship, but he came out of it as the symbol of hope and forgiveness, and he inspired millions with his unwavering commitment to his values.
Now, that's what I call idealized influence in action. Okay, so we've talked about the four components, but let's get practical. How do you actually spot a transformational leader in the real world?
Well, the Very Well Mind article we mentioned earlier, it talks about some key traits to look for. Things like active listening, adaptability, genuine enthusiasm, creative problem solving. But it's important to remember that these traits don't exist in a vacuum.
It's how they're used that matters, right? It's not enough to just listen. A transformational leader takes what they hear and uses it to understand and empower their team.
You got it. And they don't shy away from challenges. They adapt, they get creative, they find solutions. It's about using these qualities to inspire, to motivate, and ultimately to transform.
So let's say I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, this all sounds amazing, but how do I actually use these principles in my own life? Like, I'm not exactly running a Fortune 500 company.
And that's a great question, because here's the thing about transformational leadership. It's not just for CEOs and presidents.
You're saying anyone can be a transformational leader.
Absolutely. You can apply these principles to any area of your life, whether you're leading a team at work, heading up a volunteer project, or even just interacting with your family and friends. It all starts with making a conscious decision to cultivate these qualities in yourself.
Okay, so where do we begin? If someone's maybe a little intimidated by the word leader, where's a good place to start embracing these principles?
Well, it starts with those everyday interactions. Think about how you communicate with people. When someone's talking to you, are you really listening? Or are you just, waiting for your turn to jump in?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I can definitely see myself doing that sometimes. Okay, got to work on those listening skills.
It's something we all can work on for sure. And it's not just about listening passively either. It's about actively trying to understand where the other person is coming from, even if you don't necessarily agree with them. That's where empathy comes in. It's a really key part of being a transformational leader.
Right, it's more about building bridges than putting up walls.
Exactly. And sometimes it's the little things that make the biggest difference. A handwritten thank you note to someone on your team, a genuine compliment when you see someone doing a good job, taking the time to mentor someone. These small acts of individualized consideration, they can have a ripple effect.
It all goes back to making people feel seen, valued. Like we were talking about earlier. Okay, so we've got communication, we've got empathy. What about that whole vision thing? I have to admit, it feels a little overwhelming to think about having this grand vision for my life when I can barely plan my week.
I hear you. And it doesn't have to be this big, grand thing. Just start by thinking about what you're passionate about. What are your values? What kind of impact do you want to have on the world, even in your own little corner of it?
Okay, yeah. That feels a lot less intimidating. Instead of trying to solve world hunger, maybe I can focus on creating a more positive and supportive work environment.
Exactly. And as you start living in alignment with your own values and passions, that's when you'll naturally start to inspire other people. People are drawn to authenticity, to people who are living their truth.
So it's not about waiting for a promotion or some fancy title. It's about embodying these principles every day, starting right now.
100%. And here's the really exciting part. As you start developing these qualities in yourself, you might be surprised by the impact it has, not just on your work, your relationships, but also on your own sense of purpose, your own fulfillment.
It's like they say, be the change you want to see in the world. This deep dive has been so insightful, really gives you a lot to think about.
I've really enjoyed exploring all this with you.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up today, here's a final thought for everyone listening. What if the most powerful transformations we can make as leaders aren't out there in the world, but actually within ourselves? As you reflect on the qualities of a transformational leader, the vision, the empathy, the authenticity, think about how cultivating those same qualities in your own life can not only make you a better leader, but also make your life richer, more fulfilling, and empower you to make a real difference in the world. Until next time, happy diving.